Welcome to We Hear Her. I am Erin Trenbeth Murray.
And I am Jennifer Bean.
We're here today with another amazing woman who's sharing her story and insights to lessons learned.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to We Hear Her. I am Jennifer Bean, and today I'm here with Shima Baradaran, who is Associate Dean at the University of Utah, as well as a professor of law.
Yes.
I want to jump right in because when we were talking before, you mentioned that you moved to the United States in the second grade without knowing any English.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about your childhood? I'm fascinated to know where you came from.
Absolutely. Yes. My family was lucky. We were one of the lucky ones to get out of Iran during the Iran-Iraq War. There was a war that lasted until 1989, and my dad had an opportunity in '86 to come to UCLA to do his final year of neurosurgery residency.
Oh, wow.
And so we were so lucky, and lots of miracles along the way that allowed us to leave the country because so many people were trying to leave because there was a lot of death and destruction going on. We were, in our basements. I remember one of my vivid memories as a child is having to go into our basement and cover our faces with towels, wet towels, because at the time we thought that if Saddam Hussein had bombed us with some of the chemical weapons, that would help.
You would be ingesting that.
Yes. And so we would just go down there. It was like, all right, here's the drill, go to the basement. And we kind of would do this regularly every time the sirens would go off that there was going to be a bomb. So so we left that to come to the US. And also kind of, as a child, I remember going to the corner store and we kind of got used to it, but you'd go and maybe once every 3 weeks there's a Kit Kat to buy or something small that would be imported, but we were getting very few imports. It's kind of like any kind of war-torn country would be. Yeah.
It's depleted of a lot of things.
Yeah, and so we came to the U.S. and in second grade, we were all thrilled because we were in California and it's beautiful there, and we were like, this is amazing. Why would we ever live in Iran?
Right.
And so we went and we got into school and knew no English. I remember going into my class in second grade, and my teacher would give me a form, kind of standard at school to sign, give your mom this form to sign.
Yeah.
And I would say no. And she's like, no, take it home. You have to take it.
You have to.
Like, I didn't know the yes or no. I didn't know the difference between yes or no. That's how bad my English was.
I was just going to say that really brings to my attention the curve.
Yes.
The huge curve that you had to apply when coming to this country.
Yeah.
What are some other really impressive memories that you have of growing up in Iran?
Yeah, I think a bigger one is my mom was a political activist, and she was trying to fight for democracy in Iran, and her movements that way led her to be in political prison. And so for 3 years of my upbringing in Iran, she was in political prison. My dad is actually fighting for the government, working as a doctor for the government, and is eventually able to get her out of prison. That's a whole story in itself. But
wow. So was your dad was single parenting you?
Basically, with luckily his 7 siblings, and my mom's mom was very helpful, and her siblings as well.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. What are some things that your dad instilled in you during that time? It sounds like relying on family and was a huge
absolutely, I think,
benefit.
He was just kind of like doing his best, right, as a single dad. He was, I think, mostly really focused on doing his best to save people's lives, because he would be on the front lines doing neurosurgeries. And, his hard work as a doctor really was what ended up helping us get out, because he helped treat a higher up religious leader who then, was able to return the favor to our family. And my dad was like, actually, my wife's in prison, and they were able to release her. But that was, that from my dad's side, it was, the hard work, kind of doing your best despite difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
And then on my mom's side, just being externally focused, right? She was so focused on her country and gave up so much. She gave 3 years of her own life in prison to try to fight for democracy, which, never succeeded in Iran. It's still, we still don't have no democracy. But I really admire her being willing to do that and not having fear. Like,
talk about watching someone with your own eyes, someone very special to your family, stand in that conviction,
right,
and sort of pay for that, I guess.
Yeah, and she's so brave. It's like, imagine the bravery. And you meet her, and people think when you say, oh, my mom, served in political prisoner, was a political prisoner, and did all of this stuff. People think she's this kind of like tough woman, and she's just like the kindest, like sweetest, most, meek
Oh,
person. And
yes.
she has no, she's not that type of person, but she just felt so strongly that this was the right thing to do, that she needed to try to make her country better. And I just admire that so much.
Oh, that's amazing. What are some other things that you see that you inherited from your parents and maybe their experience growing up in such a different culture?
Yeah. I think one thing is, and I'm trying to teach this to my kids, although it's harder since they do have more advantages, but I think one thing is hard work is way more important than anything else. So, I think a lot of times we focus on kind of what is your interest or what are you talented at? And I think that wasn't even a calculus as a child for us. You know, all three of us, we had 3 daughters at the time when we immigrated. My parents insisted that we all become doctors. And the reason for that was, in Iran, to be a doctor, you have to test the highest. It's like they have an ACT basically at the end of high school.
Okay.
And if you don't get the highest score, you can't be a doctor.
It's not even an option for you. If you're interested or curious or maybe
right.
good at
like,
it.
Do I like science? Do I not? It's like, if you get the high score, you're going to be a doctor. That's just how
and that determines your destiny.
Yes, and people will choose that. And so that's why for them, they thought, well, we can come to America, this land of opportunity. Everyone can become a doctor. And so they said, all 3 of us needed to be doctors. And, 2 of us failed and became law professors. The other's a doctor.
I love that, that it may have felt like a failure to be so successful.
But for them, but that was the neat thing. It was just that it wasn't like, well, are you going to be good at school? Are you,
are you passionate
about
this?
You don't even speak English, but I was in 2nd grade. I didn't speak a lick of English, but then it was like, I'm going to be a doctor. And I just believed that because they instilled that in us. We have to work hard. You're going to be a doctor. And I like that mentality. I try to kind of instill that in my kids or anyone I mentor, my students. It's like hard work can get you a lot more than talent or anything else.
That's true. That's true. What are some other life lessons that you've learned along the way? Hard work pays off for sure.
I think another one, like just speaking of the English thing, disadvantages can become your advantage. And I think in my instance, because I knew that my English was not as good growing up and I had to work harder than other students, I think it just made me that much better. And now I think writing is my best skill in life, right? As I write as a law professor, I've written 3 books, a textbook and my solo authored book, and a student treatise in criminal law. So I've written all these books because I just worked hard. And I think, growing up, there were a lot of kind of failures. You call them failures.
Sure.
Really it's good feedback. But those failures where, I'd turn in a paper. For instance, my first year as a summer associate at my firm, it was Kirkland Ellis, which is coming to Salt Lake too, which is exciting. But I turned in a paper and I remember the summer associate gave it back to me and it was filled with red. Like I was looking, I'm like, is there any word
Did
that
I do
wrote?
anything right?
Nothing right. There was not a single word. I was like, wow, okay. And instead of being like, well, she doesn't know, I was like, no, I need to get better. And just having that attitude of, yes, I might have had a disadvantage, but it's becoming my advantage because I can become the best writer regardless. And you read stories of kind of some of the most successful people, and a lot of them come with some sort of challenge. I think sometimes people think, oh, because I have disability, because I'm a certain race, because I, came at it later.
A woman,
yes, I can't achieve that same level, but I think it actually can help us because we can be more motivated.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Tell me about what you thought was one of your biggest disadvantages in the circumstances.
Yeah, I think the biggest one was growing up in the U.S., my parents came over with $10,000. It was not a lot of money.
Right.
It sounds like no, but it's, to buy a car and have, and so we really didn't have a lot. And so we grew up with a lot of difficult circumstances. I remember, in 3rd grade or 2nd grade, we had some help. We did join the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And they were very helpful to us growing up and kind of, giving us some assistance. But I remember just like, for many years, like we'd sleep on mattresses we found on the side of the road, and furniture. Every furniture we had, a piece of furniture we had, it was a couch.
Somebody else had trashed it.
And I think of growing up that way, I think it gives me a sort of sense of humility and also appreciation for everything I have now. I think, gosh, like we are living this American dream. I mean, truly coming with nothing. $10,000. We bought a car. It ran out in a year, and then my parents had to work. My dad was neurosurgeon driving a truck for dry cleaners.
Yes.
Just to make some money to make it by. And my mom, worked all day when she never worked before in her life. And now she was college educated, but working at dry cleaners. And so I just think the humility I gained is such an advantage in my life of just having this appreciation of like, I know what it's like to have been poor and not have, I mean, relative, right?
And,
Relative
to
poverty.
use it, and use it as a motivating factor.
Yeah, it was it really motivated me to think of, I can work hard. I saw my parents work hard. And also with all of our siblings, there was this added pressure of they gave up everything. They gave up a decently comfortable life, even though obviously war-torn Iran and we had to do hijab and there was a lot of choice and freedom, but at least we had a comfortable state. And here in the US, it was, just fighting for every dollar. And so, and then watching them kind of succeed and have that, I just think it's giving me that perspective of, I know what it's like to have come from less, and that may have felt like a disadvantage, but I think the hard work I saw my parents do helped me to kind of have that path of I can work hard and achieve the same as my parents did.
Right. Is there anything that you would tell your younger self now that you kind of have walked the path that you're on and have learned from your parents, and you realize maybe you shouldn't have been so hard on yourself or so driven? Any things that you would tell your younger self?
That's a good question. I think maybe give myself permission. So I had a really hard time in college not becoming a doctor because it was the expectation.
You're like, so what if I don't?
I know. And honestly, I remember calling my parents, and you'd think I would have called and said like, I got pregnant and I flunked out of college, like something that was like, a parent might be like stressed out if you're 19 calling, but I'm calling them and saying, sorry, like I want to get a PhD or go to law school instead of, and there's silence on the other side of the phone. It was just, and so I wish I could have told my younger self, like, it's okay, like you can kind of still forge your own path, even though my parents, for them, security was the medical profession and that was it.
Sure.
And so I would have, it would have been nice to have that perspective now, and I can see so many successful people in all fields.
Success isn't necessarily defined, but it's interesting that their experience and their perspective was based on the success that you can have, which is attached to the title of doctor, will pull you out of any of your difficulties.
Yes, and that's actually, my dad even was, that was one of his points about being a doctor, is like, because he was a doctor, he was able to succeed in the U.S. Like if he was a lawyer, it would have been difficult. He would have had to retrain. So I think for him, it was like, well, of course you should all be doctors. That will give you the most security and the most success, options for success.
How do you define success?
Now it's a lot different, right? I think success to me is, using your skills and talents to better humanity, better your country, better your community. I think that's how I define, career success for me. And that's why, I ended up doing criminal justice reform and writing about bail and police and prosecutors, because I feel like my mom, I'm trying to, live up to her expectations.
I was wondering about that.
But I have this soft spot in my heart for people that, are disadvantaged in the system in any way.
Sure.
And, have been, given a bad break possibly. And, I'd love justice and fairness to be, established more in the U.S. as far as criminal justice goes.
That's wonderful. I love that you've written 3 books. One of my dreams that I wanted, that I am chasing, is to be a published author.
That's awesome. Yeah.
What was so compelling? What's your favorite book that you've written of the 3?
Definitely my bail book. So that's that was one kind of almost wrote itself. I started writing about bail after I spent 2 years in Malawi doing pretrial justice, pretrial detention reform, and doing a lot of bail applications, because in Malawi people don't have lawyers unless they're charged with murder. So they don't get, there's no criminal
any lesser crime, you don't get the assistance.
Right. So when I was there, I was able to, even with my U.S. law degree, kind of help those people, other people, people charged with burglary, rape, all the other types of crimes.
Okay, gotcha.
So I filed a lot of bail applications to try to get them out. And after that experience, when I came back to the U.S., I thought, well, what is our U.S. bail practice? And that's kind of what motivated me initially as a law professor. And so I wrote this book, based on my research from 2008 until, I think it was, when did I publish that? 2017.
2017.
On different aspects of bail. And at the time when I was writing about it, it wasn't really talked about. There hadn't been a book written about bail for 30 years in the U.S. No one had cared about it. And maybe people still don't care. But in criminal justice now,
you're like, I care.
Yeah, I care. And people are starting to care more about bail, and they've been more interested. A lot of states have reformed bail, including Utah. And so that's the one I'm probably most proud of. It's my kind of solo authored book. The other ones are co-authored, but it was neat to have a textbook too and teach my students out of that. That was my criminal law book. But my bail book is more it just took so many years of research to kind of come up with
Right. And you were so entrenched
yes.
in it.
And I still, that's kind of one of my passions is if we can get people out in that short period before trial, it really can make a difference for them
In their
for
journey.
their whole journey. Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful. Excuse me. Tell me a little bit about you as a mother.
Yes. So I have 4 children. I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And so
Oh,
we
my.
yes.
A 2-year-old.
Yes.
I have a 16-year-old who happens to be my youngest. So to think younger than that
Yeah.
takes me back to some very chaotic
But
times.
you're probably having the same late nights I have, right? With the 16-year-old. I mean, that's...
Yeah, not instead of rocking them to sleep or making
Right.
sure they go to bed, it's
Yes.
making sure they get through the front door.
Right. And that gets harder. I feel like it's like I'm on both ends. I'm
Right
up
now
late
you
with
are, huh?
And then it's funny because my 16-year-old, he's so sweet. He's like the, wise, sweet kid. And I'm always like, instead of like, you need to be home at a certain time, I'm like, hey, like, what time do you think you can come home tonight? Because he knows I'm tired. He's like, all right, I think tonight can be 11, Mom. I was like,
You're
okay,
like, oh, that's much better for me.
And they're sweet, but they get that it's, we're juggling a lot with the 4 and trying to work. And
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What is something that you have learned from your children?
Oh man, so much. I learn every day. I think patience, right? I think, every day, just kind of practicing patience. I think there's I read a lot of books, Eckhart Tolle and others.
Oh, he's so good.
Yes, about mindfulness. And I just think, it's easy said in a vacuum, but when you have children, that's really when you learn kind of like mindfulness and patience and just that, kind of determination to live in a beautiful state of life. I think that's where what my kids teach me. And I think I'm grateful for them because without them, it is easier to be,
just easier, probably.
Patient, happy.
Yeah.
I mean, they give you trials which are good. They help you learn and grow. And I feel like I've grown so much from having that experience to be a mother. It's the most, important success I've ever achieved is being able to have children. And I feel so blessed for that.
Oh, I feel the same way. What do you hope your children say about you when you're not in the room? How would they describe you?
I hope just kind and loving. I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to, express for them is just, unconditional love, that I love them regardless of what they do and that I'm here for them regardless, that I'm not, trying to judge them based on what they, how they succeed, but just how kind and good they are too.
Yeah.
I think that's my, biggest judge of myself. And I hope that that's how I judge them too. And that they feel that.
They feel it. They know it.
That they know it. Yeah.
And it exists. Yeah. That acceptance.
Yeah.
It has been such a treat to talk with you today. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm fascinated by how your childhood has directed the path that you're on now and brought you into the law industry and focus. And we're so thrilled that you're part of Women Who Succeed, and we look forward to you inspiring our work.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure to talk to you and be part of this great organization. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking time to hear her. Join our efforts and learn more at womenwhosucceed.org. A big thank you to our sponsor, the Clark and Christine Ivory Foundation.